A single photo, a deadly secret. One impossible choice. When Elena Ward accidentally sends an intimate photo to her ruthless CEO on Christmas Eve, she expects to be fired. Instead, Adrian Voss does something far more dangerous. He looks at her like she matters. But someone else is watching too. An anonymous threat turns a humiliating mistake into a deadly game, forcing Elena to realize her entire life has been manipulated. Now Adrian must choose: protect his empire or the woman who was never supposed to be seen. Stay until the end, hit like, and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. Elena Ward had perfected the art of being invisible. 3 years at Voss International, and she could count on one hand the number of times Adrian Voss had looked directly at her. Not that she blamed him. CEOs didn't notice assistants the way normal people didn't notice air. Essential, yes, but not worth acknowledging. She preferred it that way. Mostly. The 14th floor of the downtown Seattle high-rise hummed with the sterile efficiency of a place that never truly stopped working, even on Christmas Eve. Most of the staff had left by 3, trailing out in groups with forced laughter and plans they'd probably cancel. Elena stayed. She always stayed. Not because Adrian asked, but because leaving felt like admitting she had somewhere better to be. She didn't. Her desk sat outside Adrian's office, a strategic position that made her both gatekeeper and ghost. From here, she managed his impossible schedule, filtered his calls, and ensured that the controlled chaos of a multi-billion-dollar company never touched him unless absolutely necessary. He trusted her competence. He didn't know her favorite color. The office was dark except for her desk lamp and the glow spilling from Adrian's half-open door. He was still in there, of course. Adrian Voss didn't do holidays. He did quarterly reports and acquisition strategies and conference calls with London at midnight. Elena's phone buzzed against her desk. She glanced down, expecting another automated notification from building security about the parking garage closing early. Instead, it was a text from Shauna, her only real friend from college. Shauna: "Girl, you're still at work, aren't you, Elena? How did you know?" Shauna: "Because I know you. Leave. Come to the party. Wear something that isn't beige." Elena: "I don't own anything that isn't beige." Shauna: "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard." Elena smiled despite herself. Shauna had been trying to fix her social life for years, operating under the persistent delusion that Elena's quiet existence was a problem that needed solving. She meant well. She didn't understand that some people were just built for the margins. Shauna: "At least send me a pic of what you're wearing under that beige. Tell me you're not in your work clothes." Elena hesitated. She'd changed an hour ago, swapping her usual conservative blouse and slacks for something softer. A stupid impulse. She'd brought the dress to work last week, intending to wear it to Shauna's party if she actually worked up the nerve to go. Emerald green, simple, but fitted in a way that made her feel exposed and awake at the same time. She'd put it on in the bathroom down the hall, telling herself she'd decide about the party after she finished Adrian's filing. She hadn't expected to still be wearing it at 8:30. The office felt different in a dress, like she was trespassing in her own workspace. Elena: "You're ridiculous." Shauna: "Pick or it didn't happen." Elena stood, smoothing the fabric over her hips. The floor was empty. Adrian's door was half closed. She angled her phone, catching the mirror behind her desk, and took a quick photo. Nothing scandalous. Just her in the dress, one hand on her hip, a slight smile because Shauna would mock her if she looked too serious. She hit send without thinking. Then she froze. The message thread at the top of her screen wasn't Shauna's name. It was Adrian Voss. Work. Her stomach dropped so fast she thought she might actually be sick. For 3 seconds she couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't process anything except the tiny blue checkmark confirming the message had been delivered. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Her hands shook as she stared at the screen, as if looking at it harder would somehow undo what she'd just done. She'd sent a photo of herself, in a dress, in the office, to her boss, to Adrian Voss, to the man who'd never looked at her twice, who barely knew her name, who'd once fired someone for using the executive elevator without clearance. Panic clawed up her throat. She could delete it. Could she delete it? She tapped frantically, but the option wasn't there. Delivered. Read receipts off, thank God, but delivered. Which meant it was sitting on his phone right now, waiting. She had to fix this. Elena moved without thinking, crossing the space to his door in 4 strides. She knocked once, sharp and too loud in the silence. Come in. Adrian's voice was exactly what it always was, calm, controlled, vaguely distracted. The voice of a man who expected problems to present themselves in neat, solvable packages. Elena pushed the door open. He was behind his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled to his elbows. His laptop cast a cold glow across his face, sharpening the angles that made him look older than 36. Dark hair, dark eyes, the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers under headlines about power and ruthlessness. He didn't look up. I need you to delete something, she said, and her voice came out strangled. That got his attention. His gaze lifted, and for the first time in 3 years, Adrian Voss actually looked at her. He went very still. Elena realized, too late, that she was still wearing the dress, that he was seeing her in it, that the photo on his phone and the woman in his doorway were suddenly, horrifyingly connected. I sent you something by mistake, she said quickly. A text. I need you to delete it without looking at it, please. Adrian's expression didn't change. He reached for his phone, tapped the screen twice, and went quiet. He was looking at it, right now. He was looking at her photo, and Elena wanted to melt into the floor, to unsee the last 5 minutes, to be literally anywhere else. I'm sorry, she said, the words tumbling out. It was meant for a friend. I didn't mean to. I'll resign if you want. Just please forget this happened. Adrian set his phone down carefully. He leaned back in his chair, and his eyes moved over her with a focus that made her skin feel too tight. Not leering, not inappropriate, just noticing, like he was solving an equation he hadn't realized was there. You wore that to work? He asked. No, I mean, yes, but not to work. I changed. I was going to a party. Maybe. I don't know. She was babbling. She never babbled. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. His tone was flat, unreadable. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. This was how she lost her job, her apartment, the fragile stability she'd built from nothing. One stupid mistake. Adrian stood. He moved around the desk, and Elena's instinct was to step back, but she held her ground. He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets, studying her like she was a contract he was trying to interpret. Why were you sending photos to a friend at 8:30 on Christmas Eve? She wanted proof I wasn't still in work clothes. But you were in work clothes. Earlier. Then I changed. I thought... She stopped. This wasn't helping. It doesn't matter. I'll go. Elena. The sound of her name in his voice stopped her cold. He'd said it before, of course, but never like this. Never with weight. Do you want to go to that party? He asked. She blinked. What? Your friend's party. Do you want to go? She didn't know how to answer that. Why does it matter? Because if you don't, you're still here in that dress for no reason. And if you do, I'm keeping you from it. His head tilted slightly. Which is it? Elena's thoughts were a mess. I don't understand what's happening right now. Neither do I, Adrian said quietly. And for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain, not vulnerable. Adrian Voss didn't do vulnerable, but uncertain. Like he'd been presented with a variable he didn't know how to calculate. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced down reflexively. Unknown. Number. Nice dress. Elena's breath caught. She stared at the screen, at the message that made no sense. Unknown number, 2 words, casual, almost friendly, but no one else had seen the photo. What is it? Adrian's voice sharpened. She looked up, and the uncertainty was gone from his face, replaced by something colder, more alert. I got a text, she said slowly, from a number I don't recognize. What does it say? She showed him. Adrian took her phone, his jaw tightening as he read. When he looked at her again, his expression was hard. Who else did you send that photo to? No one. Just you, by accident. Then how... He stopped. His eyes narrowed. Do you have your location turned on? I don't know, maybe. I never checked that stuff. Adrian's fingers moved over her phone screen, quick and efficient. His frown deepened. You have it broadcasting. Anyone with the right access could see where you are. I don't understand. Someone's watching you, Elena? The words landed like a punch. Elena took her phone back, staring at the message again. Nice dress. Innocent on the surface, chilling underneath. That's not possible, she said. But even as she said it, she felt the truth of it crawling over her skin. Someone had seen her. Not the photo. Her. Here. Now. When did you put that dress on? Adrian asked. 20 minutes ago, maybe less. And you've been on this floor the whole time. Yes. His gaze swept the office, the windows overlooking the city, the darkened hallways beyond. We need to check the security cameras. Adrian, you're overreacting. Am I? He held up her phone, the message still glowing. You sent a photo to one person by mistake, and now someone else knows what you're wearing. That's not a coincidence. Elena's pulse kicked up. He was right. He was absolutely right, and the realization made her feel cold all over. Adrian was already moving. He crossed to his desk, unlocked his laptop, and pulled up the building's security interface. His fingers flew over the keys with a precision that would have been impressive if Elena weren't currently spiraling. There, he said after a moment. 14th floor camera feed. Last 30 minutes. She came around the desk to look. The screen showed a grid of black and white video feeds, each one capturing a different angle of the floor. Her desk, the elevator bay, the hallway leading to the bathrooms. Adrian scrubbed through the footage. Elena watched herself on screen, a grainy figure moving from the bathroom to her desk, adjusting the dress, taking the photo. It felt invasive, watching herself when she'd thought she was alone. There. Adrian froze the feed. Do you see that? He pointed to one of the cameras covering the parking garage stairwell. A figure stood just inside the door, partially obscured by shadow. The timestamp read 8:17 p.m. 3 minutes before Elena had taken the photo. I don't recognize them, Elena said. Neither do I. Adrian zoomed in, but the resolution was too poor. The figure was just a shape, a suggestion of a person. But they're watching the hallway, your hallway. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. Who would do that? Adrian didn't answer. He pulled out his own phone, dialing quickly. This is Voss. I need security to sweep the 14th floor, now. Yes, I'm aware it's Christmas Eve. I don't care. 5 minutes. He hung up and looked at her. You're not leaving this office until we know what's going on. Adrian, this is crazy. It's probably just some creep. Probably, he agreed. But you're not taking that chance. There was something in his voice that stopped her from arguing. Not quite protective, not quite possessive. Something in between that she didn't have a name for. Her phone buzzed again. They both looked down at the screen. Unknown number. He's watching you now, too. Bet that feels different, doesn't it? Elena's hands went numb. Adrian's expression turned to stone. Give me your phone, he said. She handed it over. He read the message twice, his jaw working. Then he did something Elena didn't expect. He typed a response. Adrian, from Elena's phone. Who is this? The reply came in seconds. Unknown number. Someone who's been paying attention. Unlike him. Until now. Adrian's grip on the phone tightened. Elena could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his breathing had gone carefully controlled. They're talking about you, she said. They know you're here. They know more than that. He handed the phone back. They know I wasn't paying attention before. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Elena felt her face heat. Adrian? Don't. His voice was quiet. Not right now. Security arrived 4 minutes later. 2 guards, both armed, both looking irritated at being called back from whatever they'd been doing. Adrian met them at the door, spoke in low, clipped tones Elena couldn't quite hear. One of them nodded and left. The other took up position in the hallway. Adrian came back into the office and closed the door. They're checking the stairwells and the garage, he said. If anyone's still in the building, they'll find them. Elena nodded, but she didn't feel reassured. The messages had stopped, but the silence felt worse somehow, like whoever was watching had decided they'd said enough. You should go home, Adrian said. I don't think I should be alone right now. You won't be. I'll have security follow you. Make sure you get inside safely. Elena looked at him, at the man who'd barely acknowledged her existence for 3 years, who was now coordinating her protection like it was the most natural thing in the world. Why are you doing this? Because someone's threatening you. That's not what I mean. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, because I should have been paying attention before now. The admission hit harder than it should have. Elena felt something crack open in her chest, something she'd kept carefully locked away. It's not your job to pay attention to me, she said. Maybe it should be. Before she could respond, his phone rang. He answered it, listened, frowned. Understood. Thank you. He hung up and looked at her. They didn't find anyone. So they're gone. Or they were never in the building to begin with. That possibility was somehow worse. If they weren't in the building, it meant they were watching from outside. From anywhere. From everywhere. Elena's phone buzzed a third time. She almost didn't want to look. No. Number. Merry Christmas, Elena. This is just the beginning. Adrian read the message over her shoulder. His hand came to rest on her back, warm and steady and completely unexpected. We're going to figure this out. How? I don't know yet. He looked at her, and there was something in his eyes she'd never seen before. But I'm not letting anyone hurt you. It should have sounded dramatic. It should have felt like overreach. Instead, it felt like a promise. Yes, the security escort home was surreal. Elena sat in the back of her car, while a guard followed 3 lengths behind in a company SUV. She lived in a modest apartment in Capitol Hill, the kind of place that was too expensive for what it was, but still cheaper than anything closer to downtown. She'd chosen it because it was quiet, safe, forgettable. Tonight, it felt like neither. The guard walked her to her door, checked the apartment, and left his number in case she needed anything. Elena locked the deadbolt behind him and leaned against the door, her heart still racing. Her apartment was exactly how she'd left it that morning. Small, neat, impersonal. She'd lived here for 2 years and it still looked like she might move out tomorrow. No photos on the walls, no clutter on the shelves, just the basics. Couch, TV, kitchen table for one. She pulled out her phone. No new messages from the unknown number. Just the 3 from earlier, sitting in her thread like landmines. She should call the police. She knew that, but what would she tell them? Someone complimented my dress and said it was the beginning? They'd file a report and do nothing. She'd seen enough crime shows to know how this worked. Instead, she texted Shauna. Elena, can't make it tonight. Sorry. Shauna, are you okay? Did something happen at work? Elena, long story. I'll call you tomorrow. Shauna, if that hot boss of yours did something, I will end him. Elena almost laughed. If only it were that simple. She changed out of the dress and into sweats, trying to shake the feeling that someone was still watching. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor, no balcony, windows facing an alley. She checked each one anyway, making sure the locks were engaged, the curtains drawn. Her phone rang. Adrian. She answered without thinking. Hello? Did you get home safely? His voice was different on the phone, less controlled, more human. Yes. Your guard was very thorough. Good. A pause. Are you okay? I don't know, she admitted. This doesn't feel real. It's real. Another pause. Elena, I need to ask you something. Okay. Has anything like this happened before? Messages, calls, someone following you? She thought about it. No, nothing. What about your ex? The question caught her off guard. Garrett, why would you... She stopped. How do you know I have an ex? You mentioned him once, last year. You were on the phone with someone, and I overheard. Elena had no memory of that. The idea that Adrian had been listening, had remembered, made her feel exposed all over again. Garrett wouldn't do this, she said. We ended things badly, but he's not threatening. He's just selfish. How badly? He cheated. I found out. We broke up. It wasn't complicated. When was this? 2 years ago. Almost exactly. She frowned. Why does it matter? Because timing matters. If someone's targeting you now, there's a reason. Either something changed or they've been planning this for a while. The thought made her skin crawl. You think this is connected to Garrett? I think we can't rule it out. Elena sank onto her couch. This is insane. I'm nobody. Why would anyone plan something like this? You're not nobody. Adrian's voice was firm. And whoever this is, they clearly disagree. She didn't know what to say to that. Get some sleep, Adrian said. I'll have security do extra passes tonight. If anything happens, call me. Not security? Me. Okay. I mean it, Elena. I know. She hesitated. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He hung up before she could ask what he meant. Elena didn't sleep. She tried. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her phone on the nightstand within reach, her mind replaying the night in loops. The photo. The messages. Adrian's hand on her back. The way he'd looked at her, like she was suddenly visible in a way she'd never been before. It should have felt good. It didn't. It felt dangerous. At 2 a.m, she gave up and made tea. The apartment was too quiet. She turned on the TV for background noise, some old movie she didn't bother identifying, and curled up on the couch. Her phone lit up. Unknown number. Can't sleep? Elena's tea mug slipped from her hands, splashing hot liquid across her lap. She scrambled for the phone, her pulse hammering. Elena. Leave me alone. Unknown number. I don't think I will. You're far too interesting now. Elena. What do you want? Unknown number. To watch what happens next. He's going to ruin you, you know. Men like Adrian Voss don't protect people. They collect them. Elena. You don't know him. Unknown number. Neither do you, but you're about to. The messages stopped. Elena stared at the screen until her eyes burned. Then she did what she'd promised herself she wouldn't do. She called Adrian. He answered on the first ring. What happened? They're texting me again. Her voice shook. They know I'm awake. Forward them to me, now. She did. Then she heard movement on his end, footsteps, a door closing. Are you still at the office? She asked. No, I'm at home. Stay on the line. She heard keys, an engine starting. Adrian, what are you doing? I'm coming to you. You don't have to. Elena, his voice cut through her protest. I'm not letting you sit there alone while someone harasses you. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Keep the door locked until I call from the lobby. He hung up before she could argue. 14 minutes later, her phone rang. I'm downstairs, Adrian said. Elena buzzed him up. She unlocked her door and stood in the hallway, watching the elevator. When the doors opened, Adrian stepped out in jeans and a dark sweater, looking nothing like the CEO she knew, and everything like someone who'd dressed in a hurry. He stopped in front of her. You okay? No. Good. Neither am I. He walked past her into the apartment. Elena closed the door and locked it, feeling surreal. Adrian Voss was in her apartment. Adrian Voss, who lived in a downtown penthouse she'd only seen in architectural magazines, was standing in her cramped living room looking at her half-empty bookshelves. I wasn't expecting company, she said unnecessarily. I wasn't expecting to be here. He turned to face her. Show me the messages. She handed him her phone. He read through them, his expression darkening with each line. They're escalating, he said. I know. This isn't random, Elena. Whoever this is, they know things. About you, about me, about us. There is no us. There wasn't. He looked at her. But there is now. That's what they're counting on. Elena felt the weight of that statement settle over her. You think this is about you, that I'm being targeted because of you. I think it's a possibility we can't ignore. Then I should quit. If working for you is putting me in danger, quitting won't help. If this is connected to me, they'll just follow you wherever you go. He set her phone down. The only way to stop this is to figure out who it is and why. And how do we do that? We start with what we know. Someone's been watching you. They knew you'd send me that photo, or they were waiting for something like it. They knew I'd react, which means they understand both of us well enough to predict behavior. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. That's terrifying. Yes, Adrian moved closer. Which is why you're not going through this alone. Why do you care? The question came out sharper than she intended. 24 hours ago, you didn't even notice me. Something flickered in his expression. I noticed. No, you didn't. I did. His voice was quiet. I just didn't let myself look. The admission hung between them. Elena's breath caught. Why not? Because you worked for me. Because noticing you would have been complicated. Because... He stopped, shook his head. It doesn't matter now. It does to me. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, You've been at Voss International for 3 years. In that time, you've never once asked me for anything. Not a raise, not time off, not special consideration. You show up early, stay late, and handle everything I throw at you without complaint. You're efficient, discreet, and invisible by choice. And I let you be invisible because it was easier than admitting I'd started looking forward to seeing you at your desk every morning. Elena's heart was doing something complicated in her chest. Adrian, so no, he said. I didn't notice you the way you think I didn't notice you. I noticed everything. I just didn't act on it. And now someone's using that against both of us. Before Elena could respond, her phone buzzed on the coffee table. They both looked at it. Unknown number. He's with you now. How sweet. Let's see how long that lasts. Adrian picked up the phone. They're watching your building. How? I don't know, but we're not staying here to find out. He looked at her. Pack a bag. You're coming with me. Adrian, I can't just... Yes, you can, and you will. His tone left no room for argument. Whoever this is, they've made it personal, which means you need to be somewhere they can't touch you. Where? Somewhere secure. He pulled out his own phone, made a quick call. It's me. I need the guest suite prepared, 20 minutes. He paused. No, I'll explain later. Just do it. He hung up and looked at her. Pack. Now. Elena wanted to argue. She wanted to say this was insane, that she barely knew him, that going to his place was crossing a line she wasn't sure she could uncross. But her phone buzzed again. No number. Run if you want. It won't matter. This ends when I say it ends. Adrian read the message over her shoulder. His hand found hers, fingers threading together with surprising gentleness. Pack, he said again, softer this time. Please. Elena looked at him, at the man who'd been a stranger 12 hours ago, who was now the only thing standing between her and whoever was turning her life into a nightmare. Okay, she whispered. She went to her bedroom and started packing. What? Adrian's building was everything hers wasn't. Secure lobby with a doorman who knew his name, private elevator with a key card, penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Sound. Elena stood in the entrance, feeling like she'd walked into a movie set. Everything was sleek and modern and expensive, the kind of space that belonged to someone who'd never worried about rent. Guest suites this way, Adrian said, leading her down a hallway. He opened a door to reveal a bedroom bigger than her entire apartment. King bed, attached bathroom, a view that probably cost more than her car. I can't stay here, she said. You already are. Adrian, Elena. He turned to face her. I know this is a lot. I know you're scared. But right now this is the safest place for you. So please, just let me keep you safe. She looked at him, at the man who'd gone from stranger to protector in the space of an evening, and felt something in her chest give way. Okay, she said. Adrian nodded. Get some rest. We'll figure out the next steps in the morning. He started to leave, but Elena caught his arm. Adrian, thank you. He looked down at her hand on his sleeve, then back at her face. You don't have to thank me. I know. But I am. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Adrian covered her hand with his, squeezed once, and stepped back. Good night, Elena. Good night. She closed the door and leaned against it, her heart racing for entirely new reasons. Her phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number, sweet dreams. Elena turned off her phone and crawled into bed. But she didn't sleep. She lay there in Adrian's guest room, listening to the silence, and wondered what the hell she'd just walked into. Elena woke to unfamiliar silence. Not the usual sounds of her neighbors moving around or traffic from the street below, but a silence that felt thick and expensive. For a disorienting moment, she forgot where she was. Then it came back in a rush. The messages, Adrian showing up at her apartment, the decision that had felt both insane and inevitable. She was in Adrian Voss's penthouse. Her phone sat on the nightstand, still powered off from the night before. She didn't want to turn it on, didn't want to see what fresh horror might be waiting. Instead, she got up and padded to the window, pulling back the curtain to reveal Seattle spread out below her like a circuit board. Christmas morning. The city looked quieter than usual, softer. She checked the time on the bedside clock, 7:15. Early, but she'd never been good at sleeping past dawn, even when she wanted to. The guest bathroom had toiletries that looked untouched, expensive bottles of things she'd never heard of, towels so thick they felt impractical. She showered quickly, trying not to think about how strange this all was, and dressed in the jeans and sweater she'd thrown in her bag last night. When she emerged, she followed the scent of coffee toward what she assumed was the kitchen. Adrian was already there, standing at the counter with his back to her. He'd changed into fresh clothes, gray Henley, dark jeans, and was doing something with an espresso machine that looked more complicated than her car's dashboard. "You're up early," he said without turning around. "So are you." "I don't sleep much." He glanced over his shoulder. "Coffee?" "Please." He made her a cup with the kind of practiced efficiency that suggested this wasn't a machine for show. When he handed it to her, their fingers brushed, and Elena felt that same jolt from last night, that awareness that hadn't existed before and now wouldn't go away. "How'd you sleep?" he asked. "I didn't. Not really. Same." He leaned against the counter, studying her. In the morning light, he looked tired. Human. "Have you turned your phone on yet?" "No, I'm afraid to." "Don't be. I had our IT team trace the number overnight. If they message you again, we'll have a better chance of tracking them." Elena blinked. "You had people working on Christmas?" "I pay them well enough that they don't complain." He took a sip of his coffee. "Besides, this matters." "Why?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. "What do you mean, why?" "I mean, why does this matter to you? I'm just your assistant. You could have called the police, handed this off to security, and gone back to your life. Instead, you're here, on Christmas morning, having your IT team trace harassment messages. So why?" Adrian set his cup down. "You're not just my assistant." "Then what am I?" He looked at her for a long moment, and Elena saw something flicker in his expression. Uncertainty, maybe, or calculation. Finally, he said, "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." It wasn't the answer she'd expected, but somehow it felt more honest than anything else he could have said. "Turn on your phone," he said quietly. "Let's see what we're dealing with." Elena pulled her phone from her pocket and powered it on. It took a moment to connect, then the notifications started flooding in. Text from Shauna asking if she was okay, a missed call from her mother that she'd have to deal with later, and 3 new messages from the unknown number. Her hands shook as she opened the thread. Unknown number. "Good morning? Sleep well in his bed?" Unknown number. "Oh wait, wrong room. Guest suite. How disappointing." Unknown number. "But it's a start, isn't it? You're already where you never thought you'd be." Adrian read over her shoulder, his jaw tightening. "They know you're here. They know which room you're in." "How is that possible?" "Either they followed us last night or they have access to building information." He pulled out his own phone. "I'm calling security." While he made the call, Elena read the messages again. The tone had shifted. Still threatening, but there was something else now, something almost playful, like whoever was doing this was enjoying themselves. Adrian hung up and looked at her. "Security's reviewing all footage from last night. If someone followed us, we'll know. And if they didn't, if they already knew where you lived, then we have a bigger problem." He ran a hand through his hair. "Elena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay." "Is there anyone in your life, past or present, who would have a reason to come after you through me? An ex-boyfriend, a former friend, someone you had a falling out with?" She thought about Garrett, about the way things had ended. Garrett was an ass, but this doesn't feel like him. He's not this organized. What about before him? There was no one before him. Not seriously. She felt herself flush. "I'm not exactly the type who has a complicated romantic history." Something softened in Adrian's expression. "Why not?" "Because I'm good at being invisible, remember? And invisible people don't get chased." "You're not invisible anymore." The words hung between them. Elena wanted to look away but couldn't. There was something in the way Adrian was watching her that made her feel exposed and seen in equal measure. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Are you going to tell him the truth, or should I? Elena's stomach dropped. What truth? Adrian took the phone from her hands. What are they talking about? I don't know. I swear I don't know. He typed a response before she could stop him. Adrian, from Elena's phone. What truth? The reply came immediately. Unknown. Number. Ask her about her brother. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. Adrian looked at her, and she saw the question forming before he spoke it. You have a brother? Had. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. He died. 12 years ago. I'm sorry. I didn't know. No one does. I don't talk about it. Adrian's expression shifted to something gentler. Elena, his name was Michael. She wasn't sure why she was telling him this, only that the words were coming and she couldn't stop them. He was 7 years older than me. I was 14 when he died. Car accident. Or that's what everyone said. What do you mean that's what everyone said? Elena's throat felt tight. The police called it an accident. Single car crash, went off the road late at night. But Michael was a careful driver. He didn't drink, didn't speed. And the week before he died, he told me he'd gotten mixed up in something bad, that he was trying to get out. Did he say what? No, I asked, but he just said it was better if I didn't know, that he'd handle it. She looked down at her hands. Then he was dead, and I was too young to push for answers. My parents just wanted it to be over, so we buried him and moved on. Except, I never really moved on. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You think his death wasn't an accident? I don't know what I think anymore. I was a kid. Maybe I wanted it to mean something instead of just being random and cruel. Or maybe you were right. Her phone buzzed before she could respond. Unknown. Number. He's starting to understand. Good. Now tell him where Michael was working when he died. Elena's hands went numb. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the roaring in her ears. Elena. Adrian's voice cut through the panic. Where was your brother working? She looked up at him, at the man whose home she was standing in, whose protection she'd accepted without question. Voss International. He worked for your father. The words landed like a bomb. Adrian went very still. My father's been dead for 6 years, he said carefully. I know, Michael died 2 years before that. He was in accounting, junior level. I didn't make the connection until after I'd already been working for you for 6 months, and by then it felt too late to say anything. You've known for 2.5 years that your brother worked for my father? Yes. And you never thought to mention it? Elena felt defensive and guilty in equal measure. What was I supposed to say? Hi, my dead brother used to work for your dead father? It didn't seem relevant. Michael was just one of hundreds of employees, a name in an HR file. Except someone clearly thinks it's relevant now. Adrian started pacing. What else haven't you told me? Nothing. I swear that's everything. He stopped and looked at her. Is that why you applied to work at Voss International? Because of your brother? The question felt like an accusation. No, maybe. I don't know. I told myself it was just a coincidence, that I saw the job posting and applied like anyone else. But part of me wondered if maybe I could find out what really happened to him. If there was something in the records, some clue everyone missed. And did you find anything? No, I looked at first, but everything from that era is sealed in archive storage that requires executive clearance. I couldn't access it without raising flags. Adrian's jaw worked. You should have told me. I know, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't help us now. He wasn't angry exactly, just contained in that way that was somehow worse than yelling. If your brother was involved in something illegal 12 years ago, and someone thinks there's a connection to me, then we need to know what it was. How? You just said the records are sealed. I'm an executive. I can unseal them. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my head of security. If there's something in those files, we're going to find it. While he made the call, Elena sank into one of the kitchen chairs. Everything felt like it was spiraling. What had started as a humiliating accident was now tangled up in her brother's death, in secrets she'd kept for years. in threats she didn't understand. Adrian hung up and looked at her. Security's meeting us at the office in an hour. They'll pull everything we have on Michael Ward. It's Christmas. I'm aware. Adrian, I didn't mean for this to happen. Any of this. He crossed to where she sat and crouched down so they were eye level. I know, but it's happening anyway, and we're going to deal with it, together. Understand? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. He stood. Get your coat. We're leaving in 20 minutes. The drive to the office was tense and silent. Adrian's driver navigated the empty Christmas morning streets, while Elena stared out the window, trying to piece together a puzzle with too many missing pieces. Why now? Why her? And what did any of this have to do with a brother who'd been dead for over a decade? The office building was eerily quiet. Their footsteps echoed in the marble lobby as they made their way to the elevator. Adrian's head of security, a severe-looking woman named Patricia Chen, was waiting for them on the 14th floor with 2 banker's boxes. Everything we have on Michael Ward, Patricia said without preamble. Employment records, performance reviews, the incident report from his death. I also pulled the files for everyone who worked in accounting during that period. Thank you, Adrian said. Can you give us the room? Patricia hesitated. Sir, given the circumstances, I think I should stay. No, this is personal. Something in his tone made Patricia nod and leave without further argument. Adrian locked the conference room door behind her and set the boxes on the table. You ready for this? He asked Elena. No, but let's do it anyway. They started with Michael's employment file. His hiring paperwork, his photo ID. Elena's breath caught seeing her brother's face, young and smiling and alive. His performance reviews. Everything seemed normal, unremarkable even. Michael had been a competent employee, not spectacular, but solid. The kind of person who did his work and went home. Then they found the incident report. It was dated 3 weeks before Michael's death. A memo from someone named Richard Kepler in upper management, flagging irregularities in some of the accounts Michael had been handling. Nothing specific, just a note that an internal audit had been requested. Who's Richard Kepler? Elena asked. I don't know. The name's not familiar. Adrian pulled out his phone and did a quick search. He left the company 10 years ago, retired according to this. Lives in Bellevue now. Can we talk to him? We can try. Adrian made a note. What else is in here? They kept digging. More memos, more red flags. Someone had noticed that money was moving in ways it shouldn't, small amounts at first, then larger. Michael's name kept appearing, not as the perpetrator, but as the person who'd discovered it. He found something, Elena said. That's what he meant when he said he'd gotten mixed up in something. He found evidence of embezzlement. And someone killed him for it. Adrian's voice was flat. You don't know that, don't I? Your brother discovers financial crimes, reports it, and 3 weeks later he's dead in a suspicious car accident. That's not coincidence, Elena. She wanted to argue, but the pieces were fitting together in a way that made her sick. If you're right, then who? Who was stealing from your father's company? Adrian pulled out another file. This one was thicker, full of financial statements and audit reports. He flipped through them, his frown deepening. These accounts, he said slowly, they're all tied to a subsidiary that doesn't exist anymore. Voss Maritime Solutions. My father shut it down 11 years ago after some kind of compliance issue. What kind of compliance issue? I don't know. I was in business school when it happened. My father handled it quietly. He looked at her. But if someone was embezzling through that subsidiary and Michael found out... Elena's phone buzzed. They both tensed. Unknown number, getting warmer. Ask him about Sentinel Holdings. Adrian went pale. How do they know what we're looking at? Elena looked around the conference room. Are there cameras in here? No, we swept the room last night after your first message. He stood, walked to the windows, checked the blinds. Nothing. They must have other access. Something we're not seeing. What's Sentinel Holdings? Adrian didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was careful. A private equity firm. They were one of my father's business partners during the Voss Maritime era. Were? They went under 9 years ago. Fraud charges. The principals went to prison. Elena felt ice in her veins. And you think they were the ones stealing? I think it's possible. He sat back down, pulling up something on his phone. If Michael discovered they were using Voss Maritime to funnel money, and if he reported it, that would have been a death sentence, not just for the company, but for the people involved. So they killed him. Maybe, or maybe they just scared him and he really did have an accident. But Adrian didn't sound convinced. Elena's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Not maybe, definitely. And now you're exactly where they want you. Elena, who are they? Unknown number. The same people who made sure your brother's death looked like an accident. The same people who've been watching you ever since. You really think it was coincidence that you got a job at Voss International? That you ended up working directly for Adrian? You were always part of the plan. Elena couldn't breathe. This doesn't make sense. If someone's been watching me for years, why reveal themselves now? Why the messages? Why the threats? Adrian read the text, his expression darkening. Because something changed. Either we got too close to something, or someone decided it was time to use you. Use me for what? I don't know yet. He stood. But we're going to find out. I'm calling Patricia back in. We need to track down everyone who worked at Sentinel Holdings. Everyone who had access to those accounts. Someone knows what happened to your brother, and they're going to tell us. Before he could reach the door, Elena's phone rang. An actual call, not a text. The caller ID showed unknown. Adrian looked at her. Answer it. Put it on speaker. Elena's hand shook as she accepted the call and set the phone on the table. Hello? Hello, Elena. The voice was distorted, run through some kind of filter that made it sound mechanical and inhuman. You're asking the right questions now. That's good. But you're not going to like the answers. Who are you? Elena demanded. Someone who's been waiting a very long time for this conversation. The voice was almost amused. Tell me, Elena, has Adrian mentioned his father's partner, Gregory Voss's closest friend and business advisor? Adrian's face went white. Elena looked at him. Who? Tell her, Adrian, the voice said. Tell her about Uncle Marcus. Adrian's jaw clenched. Marcus Hale, my father's best friend. He was CFO of Voss International until he died 8 years ago. Died how? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer wouldn't be simple. The voice on the phone laughed. Suicide? Or that's what the coroner ruled. Jumped from his office window 3 days after your brother's funeral, Elena. Strange timing, don't you think? Elena felt like the floor was tilting. You're saying Marcus Hale killed my brother? I'm saying Marcus Hale was one of the principals at Sentinel Holdings. He was stealing from his best friend's company, and your brother found out. So yes, Marcus had Michael killed. And when the guilt got too heavy, or maybe when he realized Gregory was getting suspicious, Marcus took the easy way out. That's insane, Adrian said. Is it? Check your father's personal files, Adrian, the ones he kept locked in his home office, the ones you've never looked at because you were too busy being the perfect son. You'll find everything you need, offshore accounts, shell companies, correspondence with Marcus. Your father knew. He just couldn't prove it before Marcus died. Why are you telling us this? Elena asked. Because the story doesn't end with Marcus. The voice turned cold. He had partners, people who helped him, who benefited from the scheme, people who are still alive, still in positions of power, and they know you're digging now. They know Adrian's protecting you, which means you're both in danger. Who are they? Adrian demanded. That's what you need to figure out. But you're running out of time. They've already made their first move. The line went dead. Elena and Adrian stared at the phone, then at each other. The silence stretched until Elena couldn't stand it anymore. Your father's house, she said. Do you still have access? It's mine now. I inherited it when he died. Adrian looked shaken in a way Elena had never seen. I haven't been there in years. Couldn't stand it after he was gone. We need to go there. Now. Adrian nodded slowly. Patricia, he called, and the door opened immediately. She'd been waiting just outside. I need a car and 2 security personnel. We're going to my father's house in Medina. Sir, is that wise? If someone's targeting you, I don't care if it's wise. Make it happen. Patricia left without further argument. Adrian looked at Elena. You sure you want to do this? If even half of what that person said is true, this is going to get uglier. My brother died looking for the truth, Elena said. I'm not stopping now. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. Then let's go find it. The drive to Medina took 40 minutes. Adrian's father's house sat on a wooded lot overlooking Lake Washington, a sprawling craftsman that looked like it cost more than a small country. Adrian unlocked the door with a key he pulled from his glove compartment, and they stepped into a space that felt frozen in time. Everything was exactly as Gregory Voss had left it. Photos on the mantel, books on the shelves, a light layer of dust suggesting the cleaning service came less frequently than they should. Adrian moved through the house like he was walking through a memory, his footsteps heavy on the hardwood floors. "His office is upstairs," he said. They climbed to the second floor. The office was at the end of the hall, a large room with windows overlooking the lake. Adrian flipped on the lights and stopped, staring at the desk where his father had once worked. "I haven't been in here since the funeral," he said quietly. Elena touched his arm. "We don't have to do this. We can call the police. Let them handle it." "No. If my father knew something, if he kept evidence, I need to see it first. I need to understand what he was dealing with." He crossed to the desk and started opening drawers. Files, papers, old contracts, nothing obviously incriminating. Then he tried the bottom drawer and found it locked. "Help me look for a key," he said. They searched the office. Bookshelves, filing cabinets, the pockets of an old jacket hanging in the closet. Nothing. Elena was about to suggest they force it when her eyes landed on a photo on the desk. Gregory Voss with a younger Adrian, both of them fishing off a dock somewhere. "Try the frame," she said. Adrian picked up the photo and turned it over. Taped to the back was a small key. He unlocked the drawer. Inside was a leather folder, thick and worn. Adrian pulled it out and opened it on the desk. Inside were documents, bank statements, wire transfer records, letters written in Gregory Voss's precise handwriting. Adrian started reading, and Elena watched the color drain from his face. "What is it?" "My father knew." Adrian's voice was hollow. He knew Marcus was stealing. He knew about Sentinel Holdings, about the shell companies, and he knew Marcus had Michael killed. Why didn't he do anything? Because he couldn't prove it, not without implicating himself. Adrian pointed to one of the letters. He was trying to untangle everything, but it was complicated. Money had moved through dozens of accounts, multiple countries. By the time he had enough evidence, Marcus was dead. And after that, he gave up, Elena finished. He tried to bury it, paid off the right people, made the auditors go away. He told himself he was protecting the company, protecting me. Adrian's hands were shaking, but he was really just protecting his own legacy. And your brother's death got swept under the rug along with everything else. Elena felt something break inside her. All these years, wondering if Michael's death had meant something, if there had been more to it than just bad luck. And now she knew. Her brother had died exposing corruption, and the man whose son she now worked for had helped cover it up. "I need to get out of here," she said. "Elena, don't." She backed toward the door. "Your father knew. He knew someone murdered my brother, and he did nothing, worse than nothing. He helped hide it. He was wrong. I know that." Adrian set the folder down carefully. "But he's dead, Elena. We can't change what he did. All we can do is finish what Michael started." "How?" "Everyone involved is dead except the partners we don't even know about." "Then we find them." Adrian's voice was hard now. "We use these documents. We trace the money, follow the trail, and we expose everyone who was involved. We make sure your brother's death meant something." "Why would you do that? Your father's name is all over these files. If this comes out, it'll destroy his reputation, maybe even yours." "I don't care." Adrian crossed to her. "My father made his choices. I'm making mine. And I'm choosing you. I'm choosing the truth." Elena wanted to believe him, but trust felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. "How do I know you're not just trying to control the narrative? Keep me close so I don't go to the press? Because if that's what I wanted, I could have done it 20 different ways by now." He didn't touch her, but his eyes held hers. "I'm not my father, Elena. I won't let another person die to protect a secret." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. Another message. "Unknown number. Found the files yet? Good. Now comes the fun part. Check your brother's old apartment, the one he had right before he died. Someone left you a present." Elena's blood ran cold. Michael's apartment. I haven't thought about that place in years. Do you remember the address? Capitol Hill. I think the building's still there. Adrian was already moving. Then that's where we're going. They left Gregory Voss's house with the leather folder under Adrian's arm. The security team followed in a separate car, maintaining a discreet distance. Elena sat in the back of Adrian's town car, staring at her phone, waiting for another message that would upend everything again. Talk to me, Adrian said. Tell me what you're thinking. I'm thinking my whole life has been a lie. That every decision I made was somehow connected to something I didn't even know was happening. You didn't know. That's not your fault. Isn't it? I applied to work at Voss International. I got a job as your assistant. What if that voice was right? What if I was always part of someone's plan? Then we find out whose plan and we break it. Adrian's tone was firm. But you're not a pawn, Elena. You're the person who's going to help me burn this whole thing down. The building where Michael had lived was a dated 4-story walk-up that looked like it was barely holding on. The security team cleared the entrance while Adrian and Elena climbed to the 3rd floor. The apartment was at the end of the hall, and according to the building records Adrian had pulled up on his phone, it had been vacant for 6 months. The door was unlocked. Adrian held up a hand, keeping Elena behind him as he pushed it open. The apartment was empty except for dust and the ghost of furniture long since removed. They stepped inside carefully, both of them aware that walking into an unlocked apartment after the day they'd had was probably stupid. But they were here anyway. What are we looking for? Elena whispered. I don't know, something that... Adrian stopped. There. On the floor in the center of the empty living room was an envelope, plain white, unsealed. Adrian picked it up and pulled out a single photograph. It was Michael. But he wasn't alone. He was standing outside the Voss International building with another man, both of them looking serious. The other man was older, gray-haired, vaguely familiar in a way Elena couldn't place. Adrian's face went white. That's Thomas Garrett. Who? Thomas Garrett. He's on the Voss International Board of Directors, has been for 15 years. Adrian's voice was tight. He was one of Marcus Hale's closest friends. Elena felt her world tilt again. Garrett? As in Garrett, my ex-boyfriend? Adrian looked at her sharply. What was your ex's last name? Garrett, just Garrett. Elena's mind was racing. I never knew his last name. He always said he liked going by his first name, that it was less pretentious. We only dated for 3 months before I found out he was cheating. What did he do for a living? He said he worked in tech, some startup. I never really pressed for details. Adrian was already on his phone, pulling up information. His jaw clenched as he read. Thomas Garrett has a son. Thomas Garrett Jr. goes by TJ, age 29, works in tech investments. Elena's legs felt weak. TJ, that's what he had me call him. I thought it was a nickname. He was sent to get close to you, Adrian said flatly. That wasn't random, Elena. Someone put him in your path. But why? What would be the point? Adrian looked at the photo again. Because they wanted to know what you knew, whether Michael had told you anything before he died, whether you were a threat. And when they realized I wasn't, when they saw I didn't know anything, they kept watching, waiting, and when you ended up working for me, they saw an opportunity. Elena's phone buzzed. She almost didn't want to look. Unknown. Number. Now you understand. Every choice you thought was yours was ours. Every relationship, every job. We've been preparing you for this moment for 12 years, and now it's time for the final act. Elena, what do you want? Unknown number. To finish what we started. Your brother was going to expose us. He died before he could. But he wasn't working alone. He had help. Someone inside the company who believed him. Someone who's been waiting all these years for the right moment to act. That person is ready now, and you're going to help them. Elena, I'm not helping you do anything. No number? Oh, you will, because if you don't, we'll kill Adrian Voss the same way we killed your brother. And this time, everyone will know it wasn't an accident. The phone fell from Elena's hands. Adrian caught it before it hit the floor, read the messages, and his expression turned to stone. We're leaving, he said. Now. They made it to the car before the explosion. The blast hit the 3rd floor just as they reached the street. Glass exploded outward in a shower of glittering fragments, and the shockwave knocked Elena forward into Adrian's chest. He wrapped his arms around her, turning so his body was between her and the building as debris rained down on the sidewalk. For a moment, everything was ringing silence and smoke. Then sound rushed back in, car alarms screaming, the crackle of fire taking hold. Adrian's security team was already moving, forming a barrier around them, shouting into radios for backup and emergency services. "Are you hurt?" Adrian's voice was rough in her ear, his hands already checking her for injuries. "I don't think so." Elena's legs felt like water. "What just happened?" "Someone just tried to kill us." He pulled back enough to look at her face, and his eyes were blazing. "Or send a message. Either way, we're not staying to find out which." They were in the car before Elena could process what was happening. The driver peeled away from the curb while security followed close behind. Elena twisted to look back at the building. Smoke pouring from the third-floor window. People gathering on the street below, the distant wail of sirens approaching. "Michael's apartment," she whispered. "They just blew up my brother's apartment." They were making a point. Adrian was on his phone, voice clipped and controlled despite everything. "Patricia, we just had an explosion at the Capitol Hill location. Yes, we're clear. Get me everything we have on Thomas Garrett. Not the official file, everything. I want to know where he is right now, who he's been talking to, what he's been doing, and I want it before we get back to the penthouse." He hung up and looked at Elena. Her hands were shaking, actually shaking, like her body had decided to shut down without consulting her first. "Breathe," Adrian said, and his hand found hers. "Just breathe. They could have killed us. But they didn't. That's important. If they wanted us dead, the bomb would have been in the car or at my father's house. This was theater. They're trying to scare us into backing off." "It's working." "No." His grip tightened. "It's not. Because now I'm angry, and when I'm angry, I don't back off. I finish things." Elena looked at him, at the CEO, who'd barely noticed her 48 hours ago and was now holding her hand in the back of a speeding car after someone tried to blow them up. Nothing about this made sense. Nothing about any of this was logical or safe or remotely resembling her carefully constructed life. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "And don't say it's because it's the right thing. People don't risk their lives for the right thing. They risk their lives for things that matter to them personally." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "My father died 6 years ago. Heart attack, sudden, no warning, and the last conversation we had was a fight. I told him he cared more about his company than his family. He told me I didn't understand what it took to build something that mattered. We never spoke again." Elena waited. Outside the window, Seattle blurred past. "After he died, I found his journals," Adrian continued. Decades of entries about the business, about decisions he'd made, sacrifices he'd accepted. And in the last few months of his life, he kept writing about Marcus Hale, about suspicions he couldn't prove, about a young man in accounting who died too conveniently. "He never wrote your brother's name, but I know now that's who he meant." He felt guilty. He felt trapped. He'd built his whole life on the foundation of that company, and finding out it was rotten underneath nearly destroyed him. But he didn't know how to fix it without taking everything down with it. Adrian's jaw was tight, so he did nothing, and it ate him alive. And I inherited all of it, the company, the secrets, the guilt. "You didn't know," Elena said quietly. "I should have. I worked beside him for 5 years before he died. I should have seen the signs, should have pushed harder when he got distant and obsessive." He looked at her. "I failed him. I'm not failing you." The words hit harder than Elena expected. She wanted to tell him this wasn't his responsibility, that her brother's death wasn't his burden to carry. But she could see in his face that he'd already decided. Adrian Voss, who controlled everything in his orbit with precision and detachment, had chosen to care about this. About her. It was terrifying. Her phone buzzed. Elena flinched before she could stop herself. "Unknown. Number. That was your first warning. The next one won't be so generous. Walk away now, both of you, or the next explosion won't be empty rooms." Adrian read it over her shoulder. "Block the number." "What?" "Block it. Right now." "Adrian, they just threatened to—" "I know what they threatened. Block the number anyway." His voice had that edge that meant arguing would be pointless. "We're done being reactive. From now on, we control the conversation." Elena blocked the number with shaking fingers. The moment she did, Adrian took her phone and powered it off completely. Hey, what if they can track your phone? That's how they've been watching you this whole time. He pulled out his own phone and did the same, powering it down. We're going dark. New phones, new numbers, and we only communicate through secured channels. You really think that'll stop them? No, but it'll slow them down. He leaned forward to speak to the driver. Change of plans. Take us to the Seattle field office. The FBI? Elena's voice came out higher than intended. We need help, and I'm not trusting local police with this, not when we don't know who might be compromised. Adrian sat back. We're going to tell them everything. The embezzlement, Marcus Hale, your brother, Thomas Garrett. All of it. Let the federal government deal with it while we stay alive. It was the smart play. The safe play. And Elena knew exactly why he was making it. Because someone had just bombed a building and Adrian was scared. He'd never admit it, but she could see it in the tension around his eyes. The way his hand hadn't let go of hers since the explosion. The FBI field office was a bland concrete building in the industrial district. They were met at the entrance by two agents who looked simultaneously bored and suspicious. Apparently Christmas bombings were not typical Tuesday fare. Adrian did most of the talking, his voice steady and factual as he laid out the situation. Elena watched the agent's expressions shift from skeptical to attentive to deeply concerned. We'll need to see those documents from your father's office, the older agent said. His name was Morrison, and he had the weathered look of someone who'd seen too much. And we'll need official statements from both of you. Fine, but we need protection, both of us, until you've arrested everyone involved. We can provide protective custody. No. Adrian's tone was flat. I'm not hiding in a safe house while they dismantle my company looking for evidence. We stay visible, stay together, and you assign agents to watch us. That's the deal. Morrison and his partner exchanged a look. Mr. Voss, I don't think you understand the severity. I understand perfectly. Someone murdered a man 12 years ago, covered it up, and is now threatening us because we found proof. I also understand that the moment we disappear into protective custody, we lose control of the narrative. My company's stock will tank, rumors will spread, and the people we're trying to expose will have time to cover their tracks. Adrian leaned forward. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to investigate. We're going to cooperate fully, and we're going to continue living our lives like nothing's wrong, except with federal agents watching our backs. Everyone wins. Morrison frowned. Except if they try again and succeed. Then you'll have dead bodies in a much bigger case. But they won't try again. Not immediately. That explosion was a warning. They want us scared and backing off, not martyred and generating headlines. Elena wanted to argue with his logic, but she couldn't. Adrian was right. Going into hiding would only delay the inevitable. Better to force everything into the open, make it too public to kill them quietly. What do you think, Ms. Ward? Morrison turned to her. You comfortable with this arrangement? No, Elena said honestly, but I agree with him. Hiding won't help, and my brother deserves better than another cover-up. Morrison sighed and pulled out a notepad. All right, let's start from the beginning. Tell me everything about Michael Ward's employment at Voss International. They spent 3 hours at the FBI office, going over every detail they knew. Elena talked about Michael's death, about the weeks leading up to it, about the way he'd seemed worried and distracted. Adrian provided the financial documents, explained his father's notes, laid out the connection to Sentinel Holdings and Marcus Hale. By the time they finished, Morrison looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. This is going to take time, he said. These kinds of white-collar cases, especially ones this old, they don't move fast. We'll need to verify everything, track down witnesses, build a solid case. Could be months. We don't have months, Elena said. Then you'd better hope whoever's threatening you is patient. Morrison stood. We'll have agents assigned to you by tonight. In the meantime, stay together, stay public, and don't do anything stupid. Define stupid, Adrian said. Confronting potential murderers without law enforcement present. I'll do my best. Morrison didn't look convinced, but he walked them to the exit anyway. 2 new agents were waiting, younger, alert, armed. They introduced themselves as Foster and Chen and promised to maintain a discreet distance while keeping them safe. Back in the car, Elena felt the exhaustion hit all at once. It was past noon now, and she hadn't eaten since yesterday. Her body ached from tension, her mind was spinning, and she desperately wanted to sleep for a week. Food, Adrian said, like he'd read her thoughts. Then we figure out our next move. I thought the FBI was figuring out our next move. They're investigating. That's different. He looked at her. We still need to find out who Michael's inside contact was. The person the message mentioned, the one who's been waiting to act. How? We gave everything to the FBI. Not everything. Adrian pulled a flash drive from his pocket. I copied my father's files before we left Medina. Call it insurance. Elena should have been surprised. She wasn't. You don't trust them? I don't trust anyone except you right now, and I'm not sure I even trust you completely. Fair. He almost smiled. We need someone who worked at Voss International 12 years ago. Someone who knew Marcus Hale, who would have seen the red flags. Someone still with the company. That's a lot of people. Not really. Most of the old guard retired or moved on after my father died. I cleaned house when I took over. But there are a few who stayed. Patricia Chen, for one. She started as my father's assistant before working her way up to head of security. Elena sat up straighter. You think Patricia might be the inside contact? I think she's been with the company long enough to know where the bodies are buried. Literally. Adrian was already thinking through scenarios. But if we confront her directly and we're wrong, we tip our hand. We need to be careful. The car pulled up to a restaurant in Belltown. Upscale, quiet. The kind of place where conversations could happen without being overheard. Adrian's security team stayed outside while Foster and Chen took a table near the door, pretending not to watch. Elena ordered without seeing the menu, her mind elsewhere. When the food came, she forced herself to eat, even though everything tasted like cardboard. Tell me about Patricia, she said between bites. What's she like? Efficient, loyal. She's been offered jobs at bigger companies with better pay, but she's stayed at Voss International for 15 years. My father trusted her completely. Did he trust her with the embezzlement investigation? Adrian paused. I don't know. His notes never mentioned her by name, but she would have had access to the files. She processes all the security clearances, including for archived records. So if Michael had an ally, she could have been it. Or she could have been part of the cover-up. Adrian set down his fork. That's the problem. Everyone who was there 12 years ago is either dead, retired, or potentially complicit. We're working blind. Elena's new phone buzzed. Adrian had arranged for prepaid burners on the way to the restaurant. She didn't recognize the number, and her stomach clenched. It's okay, Adrian said, reading her expression. Only 3 people have that number. Me, Patricia, and Morrison. She answered. Hello? Ms. Ward, this is Agent Morrison. We've got a development you need to know about. Elena put him on speaker. What kind of development? Thomas Garrett. We sent agents to pick him up for questioning, but he's gone. Left the country 3 days ago, according to his travel records. Private flight to the Cayman Islands. Adrian's jaw tightened. Let me guess. No extradition treaty. Not one that's going to help us quickly. Morrison sounded frustrated. But here's the interesting part. Before he left, he cleaned out 3 offshore accounts totaling just under $12 million. Accounts we're now tracing back to the old Sentinel holding structure. He knew we were coming, Elena said. That's what it looks like, which means someone tipped him off, someone who knew you were investigating. Morrison paused. Where are you right now? Having lunch in Belltown. Your agents are with us. Good. Stay in public. I'll call when I have more. He hung up. Elena looked at Adrian. Thomas Garrett has been stealing from your company for 12 years, and he just got away with it. Not for long. Adrian was already typing something on his phone. I'm making calls. If he's in the Caymans, I know people who can find him. Adrian, no. Let the FBI handle it. The FBI moves slow. I move fast. He finished typing and looked up. Besides, if Garrett's running, it means he's scared. Scared people make mistakes, or they kill people who get too close. He's already tried that. Didn't work. Adrian's expression was hard. I'm done being careful, Elena. Careful is what my father did, and it got your brother killed. I'm going to find everyone involved, and I'm going to make sure they pay. Elena wanted to argue, but the truth was she felt the same way. The fear from earlier was hardening into something sharper, something angrier. Her brother had died trying to do the right thing, and the people responsible had spent 12 years living free while Michael rotted in the ground. "Okay," she said. "What do we do?" "We talk to Patricia, tonight, at the office. I'll tell her we need to review security protocols after the explosion. We ask questions, watch her reactions, see if she gives anything away. And if she doesn't, then we keep digging until we find someone who does." They finished eating in tense silence. Elena kept expecting her phone to buzz again, for the unknown number to return with new threats. But it stayed quiet. Too quiet. Like whoever was watching had decided to wait and see what they'd do next. The drive back to Adrian's penthouse was uneventful. Foster and Chen followed them up, did a sweep of the apartment, and took up positions in the hallway outside. Elena felt like she was living in a movie, except movies didn't leave you this exhausted and hollowed out. "Get some rest," Adrian said once they were alone. "We have a few hours before we need to go to the office." "I don't think I can sleep." "Try anyway. You're no good to anyone if you collapse." Elena wanted to argue, but her body was already shutting down. She went to the guest room and lay down fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. Her mind wouldn't stop replaying the explosion, the sound, the heat, the way Adrian had covered her body with his own without hesitation. She must have slept anyway, because the next thing she knew, someone was knocking on her door. She sat up disoriented, her neck stiff from the awkward angle. "Elena," Adrian's voice. "It's 5:30. We should go." She splashed water on her face and changed into clean clothes from the bag she'd hastily packed at her apartment a lifetime ago. When she emerged, Adrian was waiting in the living room, dressed in dark slacks and a black sweater. He looked like he was preparing for a funeral. "You ready?" he asked. "No, but let's do it anyway." The office felt different at night, emptier, more ominous. Their footsteps echoed as they made their way to the 14th floor. Patricia was already there, standing by the conference room with a tablet in hand. She looked tired but alert. "You wanted to see me?" she asked. "We need to go over security protocols," Adrian said smoothly. "After today's incident, I want to make sure we're covering all potential vulnerabilities." Patricia nodded and followed them into the conference room. Elena watched her carefully, looking for any sign of nervousness or guilt. She saw nothing except professional competence. "I've already compiled a report," Patricia said, pulling up files on her tablet. "Building security, personal protection details, digital surveillance. I can have a full team briefing tomorrow." "That's good, but I need something more specific." Adrian's tone shifted. "I need you to tell me everything you remember about Marcus Hale." Patricia went very still. "Sir?" "Marcus Hale. My father's CFO. He died 8 years ago. You worked closely with him." "I worked with a lot of people back then." Patricia's expression was carefully neutral. "Why are you asking about Marcus?" "Because we have evidence he was involved in embezzlement, that he used a shell company called Sentinel Holdings to steal from my father, and that when a junior accountant named Michael Ward discovered it, Marcus had him killed." The words hung in the air. Patricia set down her tablet slowly. "That's a serious accusation," she said. "It's true," Elena said. "Michael Ward was my brother." Patricia's eyes widened just slightly. "I didn't know." "No one did, but now we do. And we need to know who else was involved." Adrian leaned forward. "You were there, Patricia. You saw everything that happened. If Marcus had accomplices, you would have known. I was a junior assistant. I didn't have access to financial records. But you had access to people. You saw who Marcus met with, who he trusted. You would have noticed patterns." Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "What makes you think I'd tell you, even if I knew?" "Because someone's trying to kill us to keep this quiet," Elena said. "And if you're not helping us, you're helping them. That's not fair." "Neither was my brother dying at 25. Patricia looked at Elena, and something shifted in her expression. Regret, maybe, or recognition. "Michael Ward. I remember him. He was careful, thorough. He came to me once, about a month before he died, said he'd found irregularities in some old accounts and wanted to know the proper protocol for reporting them." "What did you tell him?" Adrian asked. "I told him to document everything and report it to his supervisor." "That's standard procedure." Patricia's voice was tight. 2 weeks later, He was dead. I asked questions, pushed for a real investigation. Your father shut me down, told me it was an accident and to let it go. But you didn't let it go, Elena said. No, I kept copies of Michael's documentation, everything he'd flagged before he died. I've been holding on to it for 12 years, waiting for someone to care enough to look. Adrian stood abruptly. You have evidence? This whole time you had evidence? What was I supposed to do? Your father made it clear the investigation was closed. Marcus was dead. Anyone else involved was untouchable. I had no proof, just suspicions and a dead man's notes. Patricia's composure cracked slightly. I was 26 years old and terrified, so I kept my head down, worked my way up, and waited for an opportunity to actually do something about it. And you think now is that opportunity? Elena asked. I think someone's scared enough to start bombing buildings. That means you're close. Close enough that they can't ignore you. Patricia met Adrian's eyes. I'll help you. I'll give you everything I have. But you need to promise me something. What? That when this is over, the truth comes out, all of it. No more cover-ups, no more protecting reputations. Your father made choices I'll never forgive. So did Marcus. But Michael Ward deserves justice, even if it means burning everything else down. Adrian looked at Patricia for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. Deal. Patricia shook it. The files are in my car, encrypted drive, multiple backups. I'll bring them up. She left the conference room. Elena waited until she was out of earshot before turning to Adrian. Do you trust her? I don't know, but we're about to find out. Patricia returned 10 minutes later with a small external hard drive. She plugged it into the conference room computer and pulled up files, dozens of them. Spreadsheets, memos, emails Michael had saved before he died. Elena's breath caught, seeing her brother's digital fingerprints everywhere. He was building a case, Patricia said, not just against Marcus, but against everyone involved. Look here. She pulled up an email chain. Marcus was communicating with someone using a coded system. Different names, different accounts, but the pattern is clear. He wasn't working alone. Can you decrypt it? Adrian asked. I tried for years, never got anywhere. But you have resources I don't. Patricia looked at him. If anyone can crack this, it's you. Adrian studied the files, his expression intense. I need these copied. Multiple locations, cloud storage, physical backups. If something happens to us, I want this evidence everywhere. Already done, Patricia said. I'm paranoid, Mr. Voss. It's what's kept me alive this long. Elena was reading through her brother's notes, and her throat was tight. Michael had known he was in danger. His last few entries were careful, coded, like he'd expected someone might read them. But the message was clear. He'd found something big, something that connected Marcus Hale to people at the highest levels of Voss International. There's something else, Patricia said quietly. Something I couldn't include in the digital files because it's too dangerous. What? Adrian asked. A name. Someone Michael mentioned to me the day before he died. He said if anything happened to him, I should look into this person, that they were the key to everything. Who? Patricia hesitated, like saying the name out loud would make it real. Then she said, Evelyn Voss, your mother. The room went dead silent. Adrian's face drained of color. That's impossible, he said. My mother died when I was 10. She wasn't even alive when any of this happened. No, but according to Michael, she was alive when it started. And the accounts at Sentinel Holdings, they were set up in her name, used her identity, her signature, everything. Your father found out after her death and tried to unravel it, but by then it was too late. The money had moved, the trail was buried, and Marcus was in too deep. Elena watched Adrian process this, saw the moment it clicked into place. My mother didn't die of cancer. No, Patricia said gently. She died of an overdose. The coroner ruled it accidental, but your father always suspected otherwise. That Marcus killed her when she threatened to expose the embezzlement. Adrian sat down heavily. My father knew Marcus killed my mother, and he did nothing? Your father spent the rest of his life trying to fix it, but he couldn't prove it, and he couldn't face the truth that his best friend had murdered his wife. So he buried it, just like he buried Michael Ward's death, just like he buried everything. Elena moved to stand beside Adrian, her hand finding his shoulder. He was shaking, actually shaking, with rage or grief or both. "Adrian," she said softly, "I'm fine." But his voice was wrecked. "You're not, and that's okay." He looked up at her, and there was something broken in his eyes. "My whole life has been a lie." "Mine too." She squeezed his shoulder. "But we're going to fix it, together, right?" He covered her hand with his, held on like she was the only stable thing in his universe. "Right." Patricia cleared her throat. "There's more. I've been monitoring communication since you started investigating. Someone inside the company has been feeding information to Thomas Garrett. That's how he knew to run, and that person is still here." "Who?" Adrian's voice was steel now. "I don't know yet, but they're senior level. Someone with access to board communications and financial systems. I've been trying to trace the leak, but they're good. Too good." "Then we smoke them out," Adrian said. He stood, and Elena saw the CEO slide back into place over the grieving son. "Patricia, I want you to leak information. Something false, but believable. Tell them we're meeting with forensic accountants tomorrow to trace the Sentinel Holdings money trail. Make it seem urgent, like we're about to break the case wide open." "And when they react?" Patricia asked. "We'll be ready." Adrian looked at Elena. "This ends tomorrow, one way or another." Patricia left to set the trap, and the conference room felt too quiet in her absence. Adrian stood at the window, staring out at the city lights like they might hold answers. Elena gave him space, understanding that finding out your mother was murdered required more than a few minutes to process. "I should have known," he said finally, "the way my father changed after she died. The drinking, the distance. I thought it was grief. And it was, but not the kind I understood." You were 10 years old. You couldn't have known." "I was 24 when he died. I worked beside him every day for 5 years before that. I should have seen something." Elena moved to stand next to him. "Your father made sure you didn't. That's what parents do. They protect their kids from the ugly truth until they can't anymore. He protected me by lying." Adrian's reflection in the glass looked hollowed out. "And those lies got your brother killed. My brother made a choice. He could have walked away, kept his head down. He didn't. That's on him, not your father." Elena touched his arm. "We can't fix the past, Adrian. We can only make sure it means something." He turned to look at her, and his eyes were red-rimmed. "When this is over, you're going to hate me." "Why would I hate you?" "Because my family destroyed yours. My father's choices, my mother's mistakes, Marcus's crimes. All of it led to Michael's death. You should hate me just for existing." Elena had thought about this, actually. During the long hours of shock and revelation, she'd wondered if she could separate Adrian from his family's sins, if she could look at him without seeing the man whose father had covered up her brother's murder. "I don't hate you," she said. "I'm angry at your father. I'm furious at Marcus Hale. But you're the one who's trying to fix it. You could have kept all of this buried. Instead, you're risking everything to make it right." "I'm doing it for selfish reasons." "I don't care. Selfish or not, you're doing it." She stepped closer. "Besides, I think we're past the point of keeping score. Someone tried to blow us up today. That tends to put things in perspective." Adrian almost smiled. Almost. Then his phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered it, listened, and his expression shifted to something harder. "We'll be ready," he said, then hung up. That was Patricia. The bait worked faster than expected. Someone just accessed the forensic accountant files from inside the building. Right now? It's almost 7. Whoever it is, they're getting sloppy. Or desperate. Adrian was already moving toward the door. "Patricia's locking down the building. No one gets in or out until we know who it is." They found Patricia in the security office, surrounded by monitors showing different angles of the building. She pointed to one screen showing the executive level, 3 floors above where they currently stood. "There," she said. "Someone's in the CFO's office. Used a keycard registered to board member access." "Which board member?" Adrian asked. Patricia pulled up the log. "Robert Chen, your CFO." Adrian's jaw clenched. "Robert's been with the company for 8 years. He came in after Marcus died. But he was Marcus's protege before that. Worked under him at a previous company." Patricia pulled up more files. I started digging after you left. Robert Chen's background is interesting. He changes companies every few years, always right before there's a financial scandal, like he knows when to jump ship. You think he's the leak? I think he's been positioned in your company to monitor and control. Someone needed eyes and ears after Marcus died. Robert was the perfect candidate. Elena watched the screen. A figure moved around the CFO's office, clearly searching for something. What's he looking for? Whatever he thinks we found, Adrian said. He doesn't know we already copied everything. So what do? We confront him, with witnesses. Adrian pulled out his phone and called Agent Morrison. The conversation was brief and tense. When he hung up, he looked at Patricia. FBI's 10 minutes out. Can you keep him contained? I can lock the floor. He won't be able to access the elevators or stairwells without triggering alarms. Do it. Patricia's fingers flew over the keyboard. On screen, Elena saw the security lights shift to red on the executive level. The figure in the CFO's office stopped moving, clearly realizing something had changed. He knows, Elena said. Good. Let him panic. Adrian started for the door. Patricia, stay here and monitor. Elena, you're with me. Adrian, wait. Patricia's voice stopped them. If Robert's involved, he's not working alone. Someone higher up has been protecting him all these years. Be careful who you trust. Adrian nodded and they left, taking the stairs because it was faster than waiting for the elevator. Elena's heart was hammering as they climbed. This was it. After 2 days of chaos and revelation, they were finally going to get answers. The executive level was silent, except for their footsteps. Adrian led the way to the CFO's office, and Elena could see through the glass walls that Robert Chen was sitting at his desk, perfectly calm, like he'd been there all along doing legitimate work. Adrian opened the door without knocking. Working late, Robert? Robert looked up, and his expression was carefully neutral. Adrian, I could ask you the same thing. I own the company. I can work whenever I want. Adrian stepped into the office, Elena following close behind. What are you doing here? Catching up on year-end reports. You know how it is during the holidays. On the forensic accountant files? The ones I specifically didn't give you access to? Robert's mask slipped, just slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Adrian's voice was cold. We know you accessed restricted files. We know you've been feeding information to Thomas Garrett. And we know you're here looking for evidence we found about Sentinel Holdings. Robert was quiet for a moment. Then he stood, and his whole demeanor changed. The polite professionalism vanished, replaced by something calculating and mean. You really should have left this alone, he said. Why? So you could keep stealing from my company? I'm not stealing. I'm collecting what I'm owed. Robert moved around the desk, and Elena noticed he was positioning himself between them and the door. Do you have any idea how much work went into building Sentinel Holdings? How carefully we structured everything so it would last decades? And then your father had to go and develop a conscience. Marcus had to clean up that mess. By killing people, Elena said. Robert's eyes flicked to her, dismissive. Michael Ward was collateral damage. He should have kept his nose out of things he didn't understand. He understood perfectly. He knew you were thieves. We were businessmen taking what the system owed us. Your brother was a self-righteous kid who thought exposing us would make him a hero. Robert smiled, and it was ugly. Instead, it just made him dead. Adrian moved faster than Elena expected. One moment he was standing beside her, the next he had Robert slammed against the wall, forearm across his throat. You just confessed to conspiracy to commit murder, Adrian said, his voice deadly quiet. And you're going to tell me everything. Who else was involved? Who gave the orders? Who's been protecting you? Robert laughed, even with Adrian's arm crushing his windpipe. You think I'm afraid of you? I've been playing this game since before you took over. I know where all the bodies are buried, Adrian, literally. And if I go down, I'm taking everyone with me, including your father's precious reputation. My father's reputation is already destroyed. I made sure of that when I handed his files to the FBI. That got Robert's attention. His eyes widened. You didn't. 2 hours ago, every document, every transaction, every name. They're building a case right now, and you just gave them motive by admitting to Michael Ward's murder. I didn't murder anyone. I just knew about it. That's conspiracy. Still gets you 20 years. Robert's composure cracked completely. You don't understand what you've done. The people behind this, they're not going to let you walk away. Thomas running to the Caymans? That was him getting out while he still could. But the others, they're still here, still in power, and they're not going to... The window exploded inward. Adrian jerked back instinctively, pulling Elena down as glass shattered across the office. For a confused second, Elena thought it was another bomb. Then she saw Robert stumble, a red bloom spreading across his chest. Someone had shot him. Robert collapsed, and Adrian was already moving, dragging Elena behind the desk. Outside, through the broken window, Elena could see the building across the street. An office with lights off and a window open. The perfect sniper position. "Stay down," Adrian ordered, his hand pressed to Robert's chest, trying to stem the bleeding. But it was bad. Elena could see that even without medical training. The shot had been precise, professional. Robert coughed, blood on his lips. "Told you," he wheezed. "They don't let people walk away." "Who are they?" Adrian demanded. "Robert, stay with me. Who's behind this?" "The board." Robert's eyes were unfocused. "Always been the board. Not all of them. Just enough. They own everything." "Which board members?" But Robert's eyes had glazed over. He wasn't breathing anymore. Adrian checked for a pulse, tried compressions, but Elena knew it was over. She pulled out her phone to call for help, but Adrian stopped her. "Patricia first. We need to lock this place down before..." The office door burst open. 4 men in tactical gear stormed in, weapons raised. Not police, not FBI, private security, and Elena didn't recognize any of them. "On the ground," one of them barked. "Hands where we can see them." Adrian moved to shield Elena, his hands raised. "I'm Adrian Voss. I own this building." "Who are you?" "Doesn't matter. You're coming with us." "Under whose authority?" "Board directive. Emergency security protocol." The man gestured with his weapon. "On the ground. Now." Elena felt Adrian tense, calculating whether to fight or comply. She touched his arm, a silent message. "Not yet. Wait." They got on the ground. The tactical team zip-tied their hands behind their backs and hauled them to their feet. As they were being marched toward the door, Elena saw Patricia on one of the hallway security monitors, being restrained by more tactical personnel. This was a coup. Someone on the board had activated private security to lock down the building and contain anyone who knew too much, and now they were all trapped. They were taken to the boardroom. Appropriate, Elena thought with grim humor. The long table, the leather chairs, the view of Seattle spread out below. This is where decisions got made, where power consolidated, where her brother's death had probably been discussed and dismissed. 3 people were already waiting. 2 men and 1 woman, all of them board members Elena vaguely recognized from company materials. The woman stood at the head of the table, perfectly composed in an expensive suit. "Adrian," she said, "I wish you'd listened when you were warned." "Diana." Adrian's voice was flat. "I should have known." Diana Thornton. Elena remembered now she'd been on the Voss International board for over 20 years, one of the longest-serving members. She'd worked with Gregory Voss since the beginning. "You should have known a lot of things," Diana said, "but you were too busy playing hero with your assistant to see the bigger picture." "The bigger picture where you murder people to protect your embezzlement scheme?" "Embezzlement is such an ugly word. We prefer strategic asset reallocation." Diana smiled. "Your father understood the necessity. He helped us build Sentinel Holdings, helped us establish the infrastructure. He only got squeamish when people started noticing. People like Michael Ward. Michael Ward was a problem that solved itself. Or rather, Marcus solved it for us. Such a shame about Marcus, really. He was useful right up until he developed a conscience." Diana's expression hardened. "Just like your father. Just like you." Elena found her voice. "You killed them all. Marcus, Gregory, my brother. And you've been covering it up for 12 years. Not covering up, dear. Managing. There's a difference." Diana's gaze swept over Elena with clinical detachment. "You were never supposed to be part of this. The plan was for you to stay invisible, quiet, exactly where you'd been for 3 years. But then you had to send that ridiculous photo, and Adrian had to notice you, and everything accelerated." "That was you," Elena said, pieces clicking together. The messages. You were watching, waiting for something to push us together. Not me personally, but yes, we've been monitoring your relationship with Adrian for quite some time. We needed to know if you were a threat, if your brother had told you anything before he died. When it became clear you knew nothing, you became useful in other ways. As leverage, Adrian said. Precisely. We knew if you formed an attachment to her, we could control you through her. Men like you, Adrian, you're so predictable. Give you someone to protect and you'll do anything. Diana gestured to the tactical team, including walking right into our hands. The FBI knows everything, Adrian said. I gave them my father's files. Even if you kill us, the investigation continues. The FBI will find exactly what we want them to find. We've had 12 years to prepare for this contingency. Evidence will disappear. Witnesses will recant. And you and Miss Ward will have died tragically in a murder-suicide. A CEO cracking under pressure, killing his assistant before taking his own life. Very sad. Very believable. Elena's blood ran cold. No one's going to believe that. They will when we show them the evidence. The obsessive emails you've been sending Adrian. The way you forced yourself into his life after that photo incident. The restraining order he was planning to file. Diana's smile was poison. We've been building the narrative for days. All we needed was the right moment to execute it. You're insane, Adrian said. I'm pragmatic. There's $16 billion in offshore accounts tied to the Sentinel structure. Money that's been generating returns for 2 decades. Do you really think we'd let 2 people destroy that because they're feeling morally superior? Diana nodded to the tactical team. Take them to the roof. Make it quick. The guards moved forward. Adrian fought, managed to break one's nose before they overwhelmed him. Elena kicked and screamed, but there were too many of them. They were dragged toward the door, Diana watching with the detached interest of someone observing an unpleasant but necessary task. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. An alarm started blaring, the kind that meant fire or security breach. In the confusion, Elena felt her zip ties being cut. She spun to see Patricia, blood running down her face, but very much operational, a knife in her hand. Run, Patricia said, cutting Adrian free. I triggered the fire suppression system. You've got maybe 2 minutes before they realize it's a false alarm. Adrian grabbed Elena's hand and they ran, Patricia covering their retreat. Behind them, Diana was shouting orders, but the tactical team was confused by the sudden darkness and the blaring alarm. Adrian led them through service corridors Elena didn't know existed, moving with the certainty of someone who'd grown up in these halls. They burst into a stairwell. Patricia sealed the door behind them, jamming something into the lock mechanism. Where are we going? Elena gasped, her lungs burning. Parking garage. I have a car waiting. Patricia was already descending. But we need to move fast. They'll have people covering all the exits. The FBI... Adrian started. I called them when Diana's team showed up. Morrison's on his way, but we need to stay alive until he gets here. Patricia hit the garage level and pushed through the door. This way! They ran through rows of cars toward a black sedan. Patricia threw Adrian the keys and they piled in, Elena in the back, Adrian driving, Patricia riding shotgun with a gun Elena hadn't realized she was carrying. The sedan peeled out of the garage just as tactical personnel appeared behind them. Bullets sparked off the concrete as they accelerated onto the street, Adrian driving like he was trying to qualify for Formula One. Where are we going? He asked Patricia. Federal building, we get to Morrison, we're safe. They'll have people between here and there. Then drive faster. Adrian took her advice, running lights and weaving through traffic. Elena looked back to see 2 SUVs following them, gaining ground. She grabbed Patricia's shoulder. They're coming. I see them. Patricia rolled down her window and aimed. The report was deafening in the enclosed space, but her first shot took out the lead SUV's tire. It swerved and crashed into a parked car. The second SUV kept coming. They hit the highway, Adrian pushing the sedan to speeds that made Elena's stomach drop. The SUV matched them, pulling alongside. Windows rolled down, and Elena saw weapons. Get down! Patricia shouted. Elena ducked as bullets shattered the rear window. Adrian swerved, trying to create distance, but the SUV stayed with them. Patricia returned fire, aiming for the driver. On her third shot, she hit something critical because the SUV suddenly decelerated, smoke pouring from under its hood. Federal building, 2 miles, Adrian said through clenched teeth. They almost made it. The third SUV came from a side street, T-boning them at an intersection. The impact was catastrophic. Elena felt the world spin, metal shrieking, glass exploding. When everything stopped moving, she was hanging sideways in her seatbelt, disoriented and bleeding. Adrian? Her voice sounded far away. Here. He was crawling out of the driver's side, blood running from a cut on his forehead. Can you move? Elena unbuckled and fell, Adrian catching her before she hit the shattered window. He pulled her from the wreckage, and she saw Patricia slumped in the front seat, unconscious or worse. We have to get her, Elena said. No time. Adrian pulled her away from the car as armed men emerged from the SUV. Run! They ran into an alley, bullets chasing them. Adrian was limping, but he didn't slow down, pulling Elena through the maze of back streets. She could hear shouts behind them, getting closer. They burst out onto a main street and nearly collided with a police car. Adrian spun, putting himself between Elena and the approaching tactical team. Federal agents, he shouted to the cops. Those men are trying to kill us. We need... One of the cops pulled his weapon, but not on the tactical team, on Adrian. On the ground, the cop said. Both of you. Elena's heart sank. Diana had people everywhere, even local police. Adrian's hand found hers, squeezed once. Then he said, No. Everything happened fast. Adrian grabbed the cop's weapon, twisted it away, and fired 3 shots over the heads of the tactical team. Not to kill them, but to create chaos. The other cop dove for cover, and Adrian pulled Elena toward a building entrance. They crashed through doors into what looked like a hotel lobby. Civilians screamed and scattered. Adrian kept moving, heading for the stairs, always the stairs, going up because down was predictable. They climbed 8 floors before Adrian finally stopped, both of them gasping for air. He pulled Elena into an empty conference room and locked the door. We're trapped, she said. No, we're making a stand. Adrian pulled out his phone. Somehow, it had survived the crash. Morrison, where are you? Elena couldn't hear the response, but Adrian's expression shifted to something like hope. Federal building. We can't get there. They have people everywhere, including cops. He paused. No, that's not going to work. They'll just follow us again. Another pause. You want us to what? Adrian looked at Elena, and his expression was grim. Morrison wants us to go public, right now. Live stream everything we know. Names, evidence, all of it. Make it too loud to silence. They'll kill us before we finish. Probably. But at least the truth gets out. Elena thought about her brother. About 12 years of silence and cover-ups. About justice that had been delayed so long it had almost been denied completely. Do it, she said. Adrian nodded and pulled up his social media. His accounts had millions of followers, business leaders, journalists, regular people who followed him for insights into corporate strategy. They were about to get something very different. He hit the live button, and within seconds, viewers started flooding in. Hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands. My name is Adrian Voss, he said, holding the phone steady. And I'm about to tell you about multiple murders, decades of corporate fraud, and a conspiracy that reaches the highest levels of my company. Some of you won't believe me. But I have evidence, and I'm going to share all of it right now before the people trying to kill me succeed. Elena watched the viewer count climb. 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. Adrian kept talking, laying out everything they'd discovered. Michael Ward's murder, Marcus Hale's embezzlement, Sentinel Holdings, Thomas Garrett, Robert Chen, Diana Thornton, and the board members who'd built an empire on stolen money and dead bodies. Someone started pounding on the conference room door. I'm sending files to multiple journalists right now, Adrian continued, his voice steady even as the door shook in its frame. Everything is backed up in cloud storage, on encrypted drives with the FBI. You can kill me, but you can't kill this story. The door splintered. Tactical personnel poured in. Adrian held up his phone, showing them the live stream. 200,000 people are watching right now. If you shoot us, you're doing it on camera, in front of witnesses. The tactical team hesitated. In that moment of uncertainty, Elena heard sirens. Real sirens this time. Multiple vehicles converging on their location. Agent Morrison's voice came through Adrian's phone speaker. Adrian, we're in the building. Hold your position. The tactical team leader received a call, listened, and his expression went dark. He lowered his weapon. "Stand down," he told his men. Then he looked at Adrian. "This isn't over." "Yes," Adrian said quietly. "It is." FBI agents stormed the conference room minutes later, securing the tactical team and clearing the area. Morrison himself came to check on them, looking exhausted but satisfied. "That was the stupidest, most reckless thing you could have done," he said, "and probably the only thing that saved your lives." "Patricia?" Elena asked. "She's alive. In surgery but stable. She'll make it." Morrison holstered his weapon. "Diana Thornton and 3 other board members are in custody. Thomas Garrett's been picked up in the Caymans. Turns out they do have extradition when you bribe the right people. And thanks to your little live stream, we have evidence requests coming in from every major news outlet in the country." "Good," Adrian said. He was still holding Elena's hand, and she wasn't sure when that had started, but she wasn't letting go. "You'll both need to give official statements, and you're going to be the center of a media firestorm." Morrison looked at them seriously. "But you did it. You got justice for Michael Ward, and you probably saved a lot of other people from becoming collateral damage." Elena felt something break loose in her chest. Tears she'd been holding back for 2 days, maybe for 12 years, finally came. Adrian pulled her close, and she buried her face in his shoulder, sobbing for her brother, for the truth that had cost so much, for the relief of finally being believed. "We did it," she whispered. "You did it," Adrian corrected. "This was always about Michael. I just helped." "No." She pulled back to look at him. "We did it together." He smiled, and it was real. "Yeah, we did." The FBI field office felt different this time. Less threatening, more like the beginning of something instead of the end. Elena sat in an interview room with a cup of terrible coffee, watching through the window as Adrian gave his statement in the room across the hall. He looked exhausted, bruised, and somehow more real than he'd ever been in the 3 years she'd worked for him. Agent Morrison sat across from her, reviewing her written statement. He'd been at this for hours, cross-referencing everything she'd said with the physical evidence, the live stream footage, Patricia's testimony from her hospital bed, building a case that would stand up in court and put Diana Thornton and her co-conspirators away for decades. "I think we're good here," Morrison said finally, closing the folder. "You'll need to testify at trial, but that's months away. For now, you should go home, get some rest." Elena laughed, and it sounded slightly unhinged even to her. "Home, right. The apartment someone was watching. That feels safe. We've cleared it. No surveillance devices, no threats, but if you'd prefer, we can arrange protective custody until the trials are over." "How long will that take?" "With cases this complex, could be a year, maybe more." Morrison studied her. "You planning to stick around Seattle?" "I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead." "Well, you've got time to figure it out. You're a material witness, but you're not a prisoner. Go anywhere you want. Just keep us informed." He stood. "For what it's worth, Ms. Ward, your brother would be proud. You finished what he started." The words hit harder than Elena expected. She'd been operating on adrenaline and fear for so long that she hadn't let herself think about what Michael would think of all this. Whether exposing the truth was worth the cost, or if he just wanted her to be safe. Adrian was waiting in the hallway when she emerged. His jacket was torn, his tie was gone, and he had butterfly bandages holding together the cut on his forehead. He looked like he'd been through a war. They both did. "They're letting us go," he said. "I heard. I have a car waiting. Can I take you somewhere?" Elena thought about her empty apartment, about spending the night alone with nothing but her thoughts and the ghosts of the past few days. "Your place, if that's okay." Something softened in Adrian's expression. "Yeah, that's okay." The drive back to his penthouse was quiet. Seattle looked different now, like Elena was seeing it through new eyes. The buildings where corruption had festered for decades, the streets where her brother had walked, not knowing he was marked for death, the city that had almost swallowed both of them whole. But they'd survived, bruised and bloody, but alive. Adrian's penthouse felt like a sanctuary. Foster and Chen were no longer posted outside. The immediate threat was neutralized, though Morrison had arranged for regular patrol checks. Inside, everything was exactly as they'd left it that morning, which felt impossible given how much had changed. "I'm going to shower," Adrian said. "There's food in the kitchen if you're hungry, or just help yourself to whatever you need." He disappeared down the hallway, and Elena was left standing in the living room, feeling unmoored. She should be hungry, should be tired, should be feeling something other than this strange numbness that had settled over her since the FBI office. She wandered to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere down there, Diana Thornton was in federal custody, probably calling her lawyers and planning her defense. Thomas Garrett was being extradited from the Caymans. The other board members who'd been part of the conspiracy were scrambling to make deals. And the story was everywhere: news sites, social media, cable networks dissecting every detail of Adrian's live stream. Her phone had been blowing up with messages. Shauna, frantic and confused. Her mother, who Elena still needed to call and explain everything. Reporters requesting interviews. Strangers offering support or condemnation or conspiracy theories. Elena had turned it off after the first 100 notifications. "You're thinking too loud." She turned to find Adrian in the doorway, hair damp from the shower, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. He looked younger like this, less like a CEO, and more like just a man who'd been through something terrible. "I don't know how to stop," she admitted. "Me neither." He moved to stand beside her at the window. "I keep replaying it. Every decision, every moment where things could have gone differently. If I'd noticed you sooner, if I'd looked into my father's files years ago, if you'd what? Prevented 12 years of corruption and murder single-handedly? Adrian, you were a kid when most of this happened. And when you were old enough to do something about it, you didn't know there was anything to do. I should have known." "How? Your father hid it from you. Marcus was dead. Everyone involved made sure the truth stayed buried." Elena touched his arm. "You can't blame yourself for not seeing what people spent over a decade making sure you wouldn't see." Adrian looked at her, and his eyes were raw. "My mother. Marcus killed my mother, and my father just let him. Covered it up to protect the company. How do I live with that? The same way I've been living with Michael's death for 12 years. You carry it. You let it make you better instead of bitter. And you make sure it meant something." Elena's throat was tight. "Your father made terrible choices, but he was also trying to fix them before he died. That has to count for something." "Does it? I don't know. Ask me in a year when I've had time to process all of this." Adrian almost smiled. Then his expression shifted to something more serious. "What are you going to do now?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, you can't come back to work as my assistant. Not after everything. The media attention alone would make it impossible, and it wouldn't be fair to you." Elena had been trying not to think about this. Her job, the life she'd built around being invisible at Voss International, was gone. She couldn't go back to that desk, that role, that careful distance. Too much had changed. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Find something else, I guess. Maybe leave Seattle for a while, start fresh somewhere. Or you could stay." "And do what?" Adrian turned to face her fully. "Help me rebuild. Not as my assistant, as a partner. Someone who knows exactly what this company is capable of, good and bad, and can help make sure it never goes wrong again." Elena stared at him. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a choice. We've spent the last 3 years in the same building, barely knowing each other. Then we spent 3 days being hunted, nearly killed, and exposing decades of corruption. And through all of it, you never backed down. You never stopped pushing for the truth." His voice was quiet but intense. "I need someone like that. The company needs someone like that. Someone who can't be bought or intimidated or convinced to look the other way." "Adrian, I'm not qualified to—" "You're more qualified than anyone. You know where all the bodies are buried now, literally." He ran a hand through his damp hair. "I'm going to have to gut half the board, restructure the entire executive team, implement oversight and accountability measures that should have existed from the beginning. I can't do that alone, and I don't want to." Elena's mind was racing. This was insane. She'd been an assistant 3 days ago, and now he was offering her what? A seat at the table? Real power? The chance to help reshape a multi-billion-dollar company? "What would my title even be?" she asked. "Whatever you want. Chief of Ethics and Compliance, VP of Internal Affairs. Director of not letting anyone murder people again." His mouth twitched. We'll figure it out. This is crazy. Most things worth doing are. Adrian stepped closer. I'm not asking for an answer right now. Take time, think about it, but know that I'm serious and that this isn't about what happened between us. This is about you being good at something I desperately need. What happened between us? Elena repeated slowly. What did happen between us? Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I don't know, but I'd like to find out if you're interested. Elena's heart was doing something complicated. This is a terrible idea. You're my boss, or you were, and we just went through a trauma together. Everyone knows that's not a good foundation for what? For anything. Relationships formed under extreme circumstances don't last. There are studies. Okay, so we'll wait. See if we still feel this way when things calm down. When the trials are over and the media moves on and we're both just regular people dealing with regular problems. You're Adrian Voss. You're never going to be a regular person. Then irregular people. The point is, we have time. We don't have to decide everything right now. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture so gentle it made Elena's chest ache. But I want you to know I'm choosing you. Not because you were convenient, or because someone pushed us together, or because of what happened. I'm choosing you because in 3 days I saw more of who you really are than I did in 3 years. And I like what I see. Elena didn't know what to say to that, so instead she did something she'd been wanting to do since he'd covered her body with his own during the explosion. She kissed him. It wasn't smooth or perfect. Their teeth clicked and Adrian made a surprise sound and Elena almost pulled back. But then his hands found her waist and he was kissing her back deeper with an intensity that made her forget about everything else, about the chaos and the fear and the uncertainty. For just a moment, there was only this. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. So, he said, I guess that's a maybe on the job offer? Elena laughed, and it felt good, felt real. That's a let me think about it and get back to you in a month when I can think clearly. Fair enough. They stood there for a while, just breathing the same air, letting the adrenaline fade into something quieter. Then Elena's stomach growled, loud and insistent, and Adrian laughed. Right. Food. When did we last eat? Yesterday, maybe? Elena couldn't actually remember. Okay, I'm ordering everything. Pizza, Thai, Indian. Whatever gets here first, we're eating. Adrian pulled out his phone. And then you're sleeping. In the guest room, in my room, on the couch. I don't care. But you're sleeping for at least 8 hours. You're not my boss anymore. You can't order me around. I'm making a very strong suggestion as someone who's trying not to let you collapse from exhaustion. Fine. But I picked the movie we're watching while we eat. Deal! They ended up with pizza and a disaster of a horror film that was so bad it was good. Elena fell asleep halfway through, curled up on Adrian's couch with his jacket as a blanket. When she woke up, it was dark and Adrian was asleep in the chair across from her, laptop still open on his chest showing news coverage of the scandal. Elena watched him for a moment. This man who'd been a stranger, then a boss, then a protector, then something she didn't have words for yet. He'd chosen her. Out of everyone he could have trusted, everyone he could have turned to, he'd chosen her, and she'd chosen him back. The next few weeks were a blur of depositions, meetings with lawyers, and avoiding the media circus that had set up permanent camp outside both Adrian's building and the Voss International offices. Patricia was released from the hospital after a week, looking diminished but determined. She'd been offered a plea deal in exchange for her testimony about the years of cover-ups. But Morrison had ultimately decided she'd been a victim of the conspiracy rather than a participant. No charges were filed. I should have done more, Patricia told Elena during one of their FBI-mandated group sessions. When Michael came to me, I should have pushed harder, gone over your father's head. This last part was directed at Adrian. Instead, I protected myself and let a good man die. You were scared, Elena said. That's human. And you kept the evidence all these years. That's what made the difference in the end. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. But it's what we have. The trial started 3 months later. Diana Thornton's came first, and it was brutal. The prosecution laid out 12 years of conspiracy, murder, and fraud. They showed the Sentinel holding structure, the offshore accounts, The paper trail that connected Diana and her co-conspirators to everything from Marcus Hale's embezzlement to Michael Ward's death. Adrian testified for 2 days, walking the jury through his father's files, explaining the corporate structure, refusing to shield his family's reputation. Elena testified for 1 day. She talked about Michael, about the brother who'd been careful and thorough and determined to do the right thing, about the hole his death had left in her life, about the years she'd spent wondering if it had meant something. The jury watched her with sympathy and anger, and when the defense tried to suggest Michael had been complicit in the embezzlement, Elena shut it down with facts and documents and a fury she didn't know she possessed. The verdict came back in less than 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Diana Thornton was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. She'd be 90 before she was eligible for parole. The other board members fell like dominoes after that. Thomas Garrett got 30 years. The tactical team leader who'd tried to kill them got 25. 3 other executives who'd been part of the cover-up took plea deals and served shorter sentences in exchange for testimony. By the time it was all over, Voss International had been gutted and rebuilt. Adrian implemented new oversight structures, brought in independent auditors, established a whistleblower protection program with real teeth. The company's stock took a hit initially, but started climbing again as investors realized Adrian was serious about reform. And Elena, after much deliberation and several long conversations with a therapist Morrison had recommended, accepted Adrian's offer. Not as an assistant, not even as an executive. As the new chief ethics officer with full authority to investigate any concern and report directly to the board, a board that Adrian had completely replaced with people who had no ties to the old corruption. "You're sure about this?" Adrian had asked when she finally gave him her answer. "It's going to be hard. People are going to resent you, question your qualifications, suggest you only got the position because of our relationship." "What relationship?" Elena had asked, because they'd been carefully maintaining distance. Professional? Appropriate? Waiting to see if the intensity would fade once the danger did. "The one we're going to have," Adrian said, "if you still want it, now that things have calmed down and we can make rational decisions." "I don't feel particularly rational around you." "Good. Neither do I." He'd smiled. "So what do you say? Want to make this official? And I mean all of it, the job, the relationship, the choice to stop waiting and just see what happens." Elena had thought about her brother, about what Michael would want for her. He'd have told her to be brave, to take risks, to stop hiding in the margins and step into the light. "Yeah," she'd said. "Let's see what happens." 6 months after the trials ended, Elena stood in a cemetery in North Seattle where Michael was buried. She hadn't been here since the funeral 12 years ago, too painful to face the reality of his loss. But now she had something to tell him. Adrian stood a respectful distance away, giving her space. They'd been dating for 4 months now, real dating, not crisis bonding, dinners and movies and arguments about corporate policy. It was messy and complicated and sometimes difficult, but it was real. More real than anything Elena had felt in years. "Hey," she said to the headstone, "I'm sorry it took me so long to come back. I'm sorry I didn't do this sooner, but I want you to know everyone who was responsible is in prison. Your name has been cleared. The company you tried to protect is better now, safer, and I'm helping make sure it stays that way." The words felt inadequate. There was so much more she wanted to say, about how much she missed him, about how the last 6 months had changed her in ways she was still figuring out, about how justice didn't feel the way she'd thought it would. Not triumphant, just quietly sad and necessary. "I met someone," she continued. "His name is Adrian. He's the CEO's son, which would probably make you laugh because you always said I was too cautious to ever date someone complicated. You were right. He's incredibly complicated, but he's also good, and he fought for you even though he didn't know you. And I think you'd like him." Elena felt Adrian's hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. "He's here with me now," she said to Michael. "And I just wanted you to know, I'm not invisible anymore. I'm not hiding. I'm choosing to be seen, even when it's scary, even when it costs something, because you taught me that some things are worth fighting for." She placed flowers on the grave, white lilies, Michael's favorite. Then she stood and let Adrian pull her close, his arm around her shoulders as they walked back to the car. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, I think I am." The Seattle office of Voss International looked different now. New security protocols, transparent financial systems, a culture that rewarded honesty instead of punishing it. Elena's office was on the 14th floor, right where her old assistant desk had been. She'd insisted on it, wanting to remember where she'd started. Some mornings she still expected to see Adrian walk past without noticing her, but instead he stopped, kissed her hello, and asked about her day. They kept their relationship professional at work and personal everywhere else, and it wasn't always easy, but it worked. Patricia became Elena's deputy, the two of them working together to ensure nothing like the Sentinel holding scheme could ever happen again. They made enemies, executives who resented the oversight, board members who thought they were too aggressive. But they also made the company better, stronger, more ethical. On the one-year anniversary of the Christmas Eve photo that had started everything, Adrian took Elena back to the office after hours. He led her to the same conference room where they'd first discovered the truth about Michael, where everything had shifted from mystery to mission. "I wanted to show you something," he said, pulling up documents on his laptop. The final audit came back. We recovered 83% of the stolen funds from offshore accounts. And I'm setting up a foundation in Michael Ward's name to support whistleblowers, to fund ethics education, to make sure people who try to do the right thing don't end up dead or destroyed. Elena's eyes burned. "Adrian, it's not enough. Nothing will ever be enough, but it's something. And I wanted you to be part of deciding how to use it. Why me?" "Because he was your brother. Because you're the one who made sure his death mattered. Because..." Adrian stopped, took her hand. "Because I love you, and I want to build this life with you. The whole thing. The company, the foundation, the messy, complicated future where we fight and make up and try to do better than the people who came before us." Elena felt something settle in her chest. Not peace, exactly. The loss of Michael would always hurt. The knowledge of what Adrian's family had done would always be complicated. But there was something else now too. Hope, maybe. Or possibility. "I love you too," she said. "And yes, let's build something that matters." Adrian kissed her, soft and sure. And Elena thought about the woman she'd been a year ago. Invisible, careful, convinced her life was meant to be small and quiet. That woman would never have believed this was possible. But that woman had sent a photo to the wrong person, had made a mistake that exposed everything. And sometimes mistakes were just the universe's way of pushing you toward where you were always meant to be. Elena Ward had been invisible for 3 years. Then she'd been seen. And she'd chosen to stay seen, even when it meant facing the darkness, even when it cost her the illusion of safety. Because some truths were worth the price, and some people were worth fighting for. She looked at Adrian, at the man who'd chosen her back, who'd burned down his father's legacy to build something better. They had scars now, both of them, literal and metaphorical. But they also had each other, and a chance to make sure the past never repeated. "Merry Christmas," Adrian said, even though it was nowhere near Christmas. Elena smiled. "Merry Christmas." Outside, Seattle glittered with evening lights. The city that had almost destroyed them now stretched out full of possibilities. And for the first time in 12 years, Elena felt like she could breathe all the way through. Her brother was gone. Adrian's parents were gone. Marcus Hale and everyone who'd conspired with him were facing justice. But Elena and Adrian were here, alive and awake, and choosing each other every day. Sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. Shut. 2 years later, Elena stood in front of a room full of corporate ethics professionals, telling her story. Not the sanitized version, but the real one. The mistakes and the fear and the moments where she almost gave up. The foundation that bore Michael's name had grown beyond anything she'd imagined, helping dozens of whistleblowers navigate the dangerous path of exposing corruption. Adrian sat in the back row, watching her with pride. They'd gotten married 6 months earlier. A small ceremony with Patricia as witness and Agent Morrison in attendance. The media had covered it, of course, spinning narratives about power and romance and redemption, but the truth was simpler. 2 people had found each other in the worst possible circumstances and decided to build something good from the wreckage. Elena finished her speech and took questions. A young woman in the 3rd row raised her hand. "How did you know it was worth it?" she asked. "The investigation, the danger, everything you went through. How did you know your brother's story deserved that risk?" Elena thought about it. about Christmas Eve and the photo that changed everything, about the choice to keep digging when it would have been easier to walk away. I didn't know, she said honestly, but I knew that silence was worse, that letting corruption win was worse, that living the rest of my life wondering if I could have made a difference was worse than taking the risk and finding out. The young woman nodded, and Elena saw something in her face. Recognition, maybe. The look of someone carrying a secret, trying to decide if speaking up was worth the cost. After the session ended, the woman approached Elena with a flash drive in her hand. I work for a pharmaceutical company, she said quietly, and I think they're covering up test results that could hurt people. I don't know what to do. Elena took the flash drive and gave the woman her card. Call this number. We'll help you. You won't be alone. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. No, Elena said. Thank you for being brave enough to speak up. She watched the woman leave, then felt Adrian's hand on her back. Another one? He asked. Another one. You're changing the world, you know. We're changing the world, one whistleblower at a time. Adrian smiled and pulled her close. Michael would be proud. Yeah, Elena said. He would. They walked out of the conference center together into the bright afternoon. Seattle was having a rare sunny day, and the city looked almost hopeful. Elena thought about the last 2 years, about everything they'd built from the ashes of corruption and loss. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was real, and it mattered, and that was enough. She'd stopped being invisible, had chosen to be seen, to matter, to fight. And in doing so, she'd found herself, found love, found purpose. All because of a photo sent to the wrong person on Christmas Eve. Sometimes the worst mistakes led to the best destinations. And sometimes the person you were meant to find had been right in front of you all along. Elena squeezed Adrian's hand and they walked toward the future together, ready for whatever came next.